But what do you think right now of this Baltimore Orioles team as we've gotten through these first 10 games? Are we feeling like this is almost the beginning of them possibly kind of going on a run here?
Well, I think you can take the word almost out, because I think the Orioles are there, having won 101 and now last year, and now they have all three of their guys to build with: the catcher, the shortstop, and now the second baseman. And I think this is a signal that this is it. This is when it really, really starts. Now, getting Corbin Burns really helped, bringing up some other guys from the minor leagues, scoring 11 runs a game the first 9 games at Norfolk. All of these are signs that this team is going in the right direction at a really high rate of speed. But I don't think it was ever really certain until Jackson Holliday came up, because he was the best player in the minor leagues last year. And he went to the minor leagues this year, and they said, let's see what you can do against left-handed pitching. He didn't strike out once. He tore it up, and he's here. And I would have started him on opening day, but I understood and a little bit better why they did that.
Right. Well, whatever it is now, and Brandon Hyde even said recently, for those that didn't hear it, he said that lineup that played yesterday, position-wise, Jordan Westbrook at third, Gunnar at short, Jackson at second, probably is going to be the infield it's going to look like, and Ryan Mountcastle as well. And Jordan Westbrook, guys, Westy is he's got ice in his veins. He's off to a great start. Now, I think we'll have a couple news and notes we want to ask you about, Tim, because it's kind of spicy. Zach, you want to touch on that?
Yeah. Tim, thanks for joining us. We weren't here last time. We were kind of running around in the background getting everything set up. Yeah. But little news today with Jordan Montgomery leaving Scott Boras as his agent, and especially after the way that the offseason went, where it seemed like the big Boras 4 took so long to sign. Immediately, everyone kind of jumped to the conclusion that everyone's going to leave Scott Boras. Where do you think things stand? And do you think Scott still has that he's going to get these top guys and going to keep them for their entire careers?
Well, let's be clear. Scott Boras is the greatest baseball agent of all time. There can't even be a close second, because and he usually wins, which is why he's so good at this. And by the way, I talked to him virtually every day for like 2 months when the Orioles were thinking of drafting Ben McDonald. That's how far back I go with Scott Boras. Oh my gosh. But what he's become since is just amazing. And yes, I don't think there's a way around it. He had a difficult offseason as far as getting this guy signed, getting them on time, and ending up with far less money than we thought. And I'm not shocked that Jordan Montgomery did that. You have every right to change your agent for whatever reason, but I don't think this is a sign that Scott Boras has lost his fastball and people are going to start leaving him here all the time. I just don't see that happening. I think this was an aberrant offseason for him. And I think that's probably not good news for the teams that he'll make a comeback with his next line of free agents.
Yeah, I was going to say, Oriole fans, knowing he has Jackson Holliday, Gunnar Henderson, and Corbin Burns, like you said, Scott Boras usually wins in the negotiation. So from that perspective, they probably aren't happy. They'd like to see someone else. But from a player perspective, it is hard not to go with the best.
Yeah, I think... Yeah, Scott, I mean, it's his body of work, right? That's what you look at. And you go back to Ben McDonald, you were talking about decades, right? So to Tim, it's a great point with it. But obviously, with some players like Jordan Montgomery, it leaves a sour taste for him specifically, because this is a guy that was looking to lock up a more longer-term deal and to kind of solidify and not be playing on a one-year contract. But Kevin, speaking of pitching injuries, I think you wanted to touch on. So speaking of pitchers, I think we have a lot of pitchers injuries we need to touch on.
Yeah, Tim, I think it's a really controversial point throughout baseball right now about all the pitching injuries we've seen, the elbow soreness. Obviously, here in Baltimore, Kyle Bradish is the topic of conversation, but it seems like every other day, every 3 days, we get news of another pitcher being shut down for soreness. And there's been a lot of controversy about the pitch clock and throwing hard. And I'm just curious about your opinion on the whole matter, and if we're going to start to see almost a shift in how some of these teams manage their pitchers moving forward.
Yeah, I am really concerned where we are. Just too many good pitchers are getting hurt. And I'm sorry, I blame the industry for this. We are telling pitchers at a very young age, you need to throw as hard as you can on every single pitch, max effort on every pitch. Your strikeout rate has to be really high. You have to miss bats. Otherwise, you're not going to the big leagues. Your spin rate has to be at a certain rate. Otherwise, you're not getting to the big leagues. Just follow me on this one for a second, fellas. This is where we are on this. Several years ago, a veteran major league infielder on a rehab assignment in the minor leagues was playing third base. There are 2 outs in an inning, 0-2 pitch to the batter, who fouls out to the guy in foul territory. The pitcher comes up to him after the inning and said, "Why didn't you drop that ball on purpose? I had him 0-2. I need to strike people out if I'm going to get to the big leagues." How can that be that this is where we are now? Why are there so many injuries? Because every pitcher is being told, just throw as hard as you can. And if you get hurt, we got a million guys behind you. We have to change this. And I think we're going to have to start in the Little League. We're going to have to start telling 12-year-olds, you don't have to throw as hard as you can. You don't have to put that kind of torque on your arm. You don't have to throw a curveball at 12. Hit a bat, put the ball in play, and let's see if we can get some easy outs. That's where I think it has to start, because there's no stopping, unfortunately, where we are right now.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the part that we sit here, and you're right. It's a way different day and age, and all the pitchers that even, Jim Palmer being here in Baltimore calling the games, wealth of knowledge on pitching, right? But pitching nowadays compared to how pitchers pitched years ago, it's different because you're not seeing the guys, the 20-game winners. You're not seeing guys go a ton past 200, 250 innings. Like, it's not the same game anymore, but you're right. The thing is, can you strike a guy out? Who cares if you walk the guy? Can you put him away where he can't put the ball in play? And that's just such a different mindset. And you're right. This isn't something that is just at the big league level now, Tim. This is kids back in high school. And I remember in the 2014 draft, and we had Jeff Passan on talking about this, Tyler Kolek was the 2nd overall pick out of high school through 100. Dylan Bundy, another high pick for the Orioles. It seems like at a young age for some of these guys, yes, it got the attention, but their arms broke down. And unfortunately, that is something that's occurring continuously at the big league level. So I guess we'll have to figure out what happens. But Rock, I think you got a question as we shift back into kind of more recent baseball stuff, or at least with this season.
Yeah, Tim, thanks for joining the show again. Great to see you. Great to talk with you. With the Orioles now getting Jackson Holliday up, with Kyle Bradish potentially on the horizon of coming back to the bigs. He was scheduled to make his rehab start today with Aberdeen, but there was weather issues, so he threw live BP. And then John Means, he made his 3rd rehab start in AAA. It seems like the dominoes are beginning to fall. This team is really starting to come together. Should the rest of the American League truly be fearing this Baltimore Orioles team? And then to kind of piggyback off that, what's been the most surprising thing for you about the AL East through the first 2-3 weeks of the season?
Well, first off, the Red Sox are better than people think they are. Now, I'm not suggesting they're going to do anything but finish in last place in their division, but they're better than people think. They pitched exceptionally well, although the Trevor Story injury is really going to hurt them, and I wonder how they're going to score enough runs. The other thing, we've been over this, fellas, the Juan Soto effect on the rest of the Yankees is palpable. You can see it. He shows them every single at-bat. This is what a great at-bat looks like. And that stuff rubs off. Ryan, you know this. When you played with great hitters, you would watch them and say, that's how it's done. So even though the Yankees haven't scored a zillion runs, they won 5 one-run games already. And part of that is that Juan Soto gives them such a great at-bat every time up, whether it's a single to the opposite field or a walk in a key spot. This is how you get better offensively. You add a great player, and then you follow his lead. So those are the things. And as for the Orioles, yes, I think everyone in the American League, if not all of baseball, is recognizing what's going on with the Orioles. And they know this team potentially could be a nightmare for years, given their talent, their youth, their energy, their athleticism.
Yeah, and you know what? The division, obviously the Orioles, a lot of young talent, but another player on the Yankees, Tim, Anthony Volpe is off to a tremendous start, using the whole field. Last year it felt like he was trying to do too much, but that's another piece for the Yankees, that you have Soto, you have Judge, And Anthony Volpe looks like a guy that's going to be the guy for them moving forward, which is, if you're a Yankees fan, you got to be pretty excited about.
Yeah, look, he won a Gold Glove last year, hit 20 homers, stole 20 bases, and it wasn't good enough for him because his batting average was way too low. So he came back with a different swing, a different approach, a flatter swing in order to try and, instead of getting every ball up in the air, he said, let's put a few more in play. Let's get a few more hits and maybe a few, fewer home runs. I love it when a young player recognizes I can do way better than this. And he has so far. He's been a great player, and he will be a star in this league much sooner than later.
I agree with that. And I think, speaking of stars, and Brad, kind of there's some stars waiting down in Norfolk that's still trying to figure out.
Yeah. I mean, and Tim, again, it's a pleasure speaking with you. I had a question here for you, and I know we touched on this the last time you were on the show, but the roster down in Norfolk is absolutely insane, and it's a good problem to have, sure, but there's Heston Kjerstad that is just playing his ass off. Kyle Stowers, I can go down the list. Kobe Mayo, so many good players, and I just kind of struggle to try to figure out who gets replaced and how do these guys get caught up. I mean, what do you do if you're Mike Elias when you have a quote unquote good problem like he has right now?
Yeah, this is amazing. And again, this is why the rest of Major League Baseball is worried about the Orioles, because they watched that Norfolk team score almost 100 runs in a 9-game period. Heston Kjerstad can really mash, and we knew that last year, but there's no place for him at the moment, but it's only a matter of time before he'll come up. Kobe Mayo should be in the major leagues right now, and would be with 90% of the teams out there. But when you have Jordan Westburg playing at third and has 2 home runs already, as Brandon Hyde described him to me when he came up last year, just another 6'2", 220 guy who has power and who can run. That's what the Orioles have. So that's why the kids at the minor leagues can look at the major league roster and say, I should be up there, but look what they have up there. It's not like they're playing people out of position or they're weak at one spot. They're so strong everywhere. So those young kids are just going to have to wait. It won't be easy, but they're going to have to wait.
Does that give you, I guess for Mike Elias, does that give him more, I guess, leverage for a trade? Let's just say if they want to, I mean, the pitching is pretty good already, but like if they want to add to that, is there somebody that you could see that like, okay, this makes sense as far as a trade, or do you think most of these guys are pretty non-negotiable? They're here and they're just going to have to wait their turn?
Well, they're going to wait their turn, and I wouldn't trade any of those guys yet. Now, if they start moving along this summer and things aren't going well and somebody gets hurt or Bradish doesn't come back, which I think he will, then you can use your resources and go get what you need. But I wouldn't trade those guys yet. Look, I'm so old. I go back to when Don Baylor hit like 350 and didn't get to the big leagues the next year. And Bobby Grich was an amazingly good player and spent another year at AAA when he should have been in the big leagues. Great teams are allowed the patience to wait for guys to completely be ready. But the Orioles are in a position where they can go get just about anyone they want from any team because of the resources they have in the minor league.